Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to you all and thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled Marginal Becomes Mainstream, How Assessments Are Embracing Technology in 2020 and Beyond. My name is Tata Panjwani, Associate Director at the UK India Business Council, and I will be moderating this session today. As the title indicates, our discussion today will focus on the swift and profound impact that the pandemic has had on the UK and Indian assessment communities, catalyzing a digital revolution that is rapidly sweeping across the sector and radically transforming the delivery of exams now and into the future. Our distinguished speakers will delve into the challenges being faced by assessors and educators, the measures being taken as they race to adapt to the new normal, and the new possibilities that are emerging as a result of the global crisis. They will also deliberate on ways in which the sector can effectively harness innovative technologies to enhance the assessment and feedback process and develop a modern fit-for-purpose system for 2025 and beyond. Before I pass it to our industry experts, I will kick off with a brief scene setter, if I may. Prior to March 2020, digitization had begun taking place in the assessment sector, but only at a very peripheral level. Most examinations were solely paper-based, relying on physical attendance and in-person proctoring, while use of computers was minimal. At that time, a report prepared by the Joint Information Systems Committee, better known as Jisc, concluded that the archaic pen and paper assessment process needed a technological overhaul by 2025. Little could they have predicted that the tumultuous events that followed would necessitate that transition much sooner. As traditional exams were abandoned and universities and schools shifted teaching and learning online, the assessment community too has had to pivot to respond to the needs of various stakeholder groups, that is, students, educators, institutions, and employers. Consequently, the sector has begun to actively embrace digitization and explore remote delivery solutions using cutting-edge technologies. I'd like to conclude with this thought. The disruption caused by COVID-19 has also presented assessors with an exciting opportunity to reimagine assessment for the future, and in doing so, design a framework that has equality, diversity, inclusion, and cultural sensitivity at its very core. The time has come to break with the status quo and carve a new blueprint of the assessment and feedback model, one that is founded on the right values and priorities, is globally relevant, flexible, and sustainable over the long term. I look forward to hearing from our expert speakers on this fascinating topic. And now, for a bit of housekeeping, if I may, you will all be placed on mute for the session. However, you will notice that there is a question box that you can use at any time to feed in questions, which will be answered during the open discussion. If you could please also provide your name and organization, that would be really helpful. Any questions that we cannot take, we'll pass over to the speakers after the session. You will also be glad to know we're recording this session, which will then be placed on our website afterwards, and the link will be emailed out to you all in case there are any sections that you'd like to listen to again. With that, I'm delighted to introduce you to our first speaker, Graham Hudson. A member of the assessment community for over 35 years, Graham has worked in general qualifications and has been a part of the educational reforms during this period. He ran the marking of national tests for QCA for England and went on to develop with colleagues one of the electronic marking systems now used both in the UK and globally. He uses his specialist skills to help professional organizations, government ministries, and development programs get better outcomes from their examinations and assessments by finding the right systems for their needs and helping them with successful implementation. Over to you, dear Graham. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Tara, for that introduction. And I'm delighted to be with you today to talk for a few minutes about our views on how assessments are embracing technology in 2020 and beyond. As Tara has said, I'm in the education business and have been for 35 years, mostly delivering high stakes, high volume tests. and developing uses of technology that improve marking outcomes. And now I'm a consultant helping organizations transform their services into the digital environment. So what was the catalyst for what's happened this year? And really, it's no surprise, is it, that it's been the pandemic. And the impact globally, I think, has been absolutely considerable and probably unprecedented in our modern times. That's a graph from UNESCO, which shows the number of students who have been excluded from education and the number of school closures between the start of the pandemic and through to March. And it's incredible to reflect on this, isn't it, that we've probably never seen anything quite in this way before. And if we look at the numbers there, which I've taken from the UNESCO document on the pandemic, and actually, if you've not looked at any of the UNESCO material, it's a great source of information and background, which I think you'll find of use. So on the 2nd of April, 172 countries had closed their education. 1.485 million learners were affected, and that was 84.8% of the world's total enrolled students. And some organizations, as you'll know, will have reacted well, and some perhaps not so well. And there's a couple of examples there of in the United States, where federally mandated standardized tests at K-12 and across the country were shut down. A million high school juniors were affected. And close to home for us, and I'm not sure what it would have been like in your part of the world, but our government was forced in the end to apologize for the way that they had handled the grading of students from last year's GCSE exams. And just some other figures, in the university sector in Australia, it's estimated that in 2020 alone, they will lose between something in the order of 3 billion to 5 billion Australian dollars, which is just a huge impact. And if we look at India as a region, those numbers in themselves are quite staggering. On the 2nd of April, 10 million pre-primary, 143 million primaries, 133 million secondary, and 34 million tertiary people and students were excluded from education. Classes were suspended, examination boards postponed the exams, teachers were having to adapt quickly to new teaching. The future impact on employability and employment opportunities are quite considerable, and cash flow for businesses absolutely cut off as fees and other things were not paid. And I'm sure, actually, if you think through what's happening in your own nation, you can think of other examples of the impact. So what happened here? It seems to me quite astonishing how quickly things stopped functioning. National systems had no contingencies and really weren't able to adapt very quickly. In the sector which I'm working in at the moment, what I call the professional and credentialing sector, they were able to actually move a lot more quickly. And in fact, many of them had been either moving to digital assessments or thinking about doing so for some time. And so we're in quite a good position to act. And a lot of HE sector organizations had in place virtual learning environments and other software and support systems, but had not made that step into how do they deal with assessments. And in my discussions with suppliers around the world, they were saying to me that they'd never had so many inquiries, and in some cases, many were finding it quite difficult to keep up. Now, what I wanted to do was just take 2 or 3 case studies for you and talk about them, because I'd like to set this in the context of what happened and the future. So I want to talk to you about NBOSH. If you're not familiar with NBOSH, it's the National Examination Board for Occupational Safety and Health. And it's an international organization, and 60% of its business is done overseas. And I happen to be chair of their Learning and Technology Committee, which looks at future-facing uses of technology for them. Now, their main exam, the National General Certificate, was sat traditionally in examination centres, in their partner organisations, in countries all over the world. And in order to not only just secure their income, but also to support their students, they decided to pivot what they were doing into what they called an open book examination. So this meant that students had a 24-hour period to complete the tasks that were set, and they were allowed to use support and resource materials. Now, 24 hours was chosen because they operate globally, and each test had a 4-hour window for the students to take them. Now, they're a regulated organisation with the Scottish Qualifications Authority, and I think this was a great example of an awarding body and a regulator working together, because between the two of them, they agreed the change of format, and answers were delivered from the students on computer and subsequently marked. Now, the regulator had some concerns, and quite understandably, about whether the work that they were seeing was the candidate's own. And NBOSH offered them a solution, which was a 15-minute discussion with the learning provider to the student, asking them about their work and their answers to validate that what was being said was the student's own. And the outcome of that has been very successful. And they offered, having started this in March, their first revised examination in October. So between March and October, they'd set the systems in place, they'd had discussions with the regulator, they'd changed the format of their exam, they'd talked with their learning partners globally, many of whom produced extra support material and videos to explain to their learners what was going on and put them in place. And I think that's a really tremendous example of quick thinking and transitioning what they had into a new environment. And let me talk briefly then about the university context, because HE response, I think, has been extremely good. And here's an example of material from the University of London. So I've just given you some screenshots of things that are on their Centre for Distance Learning Education website. And you'll see that there's examples here focused on helping their own stakeholders, lecturers and students, on transitioning into assessment in this environment. And some 6 sensible tips that they can actually follow. So one of those, the first of them being, be realistic. Do what you can in the environment. Be professional, be confident, listen to what your learners are saying, reuse material that you're getting, and if you need help, seek help. Now, I don't know how many universities have dedicated centres in the way that University of London does. I guess many of them do. And they've had distance learning material, and maybe you have too, in place. But it's looking to see how you can transition that and move it quickly. And I think the University of London here is a great example of quick thinking, nimble, and the ability to move quickly. It's worth a look on their website, incidentally, and at some of the material that they produce, because it's available for anybody. Here's another example from the University of Newcastle. Now, these guys were award winners of the E-Assessment Association last year, and that was for putting in place an integrated system through their learning environment, their data collection and management system, and examinations. And their outcome, if you like, that they were looking for was an educational experience supported and enhanced by technology. And I think it's interesting to note that the focus there is on the education experience and not necessarily on the technology. And their strategic aim, since they started in 2006, was to have a comprehensive approach to online assessment. They wanted to have marking and feedback, as you know, being one of the most pivotal elements of encouraging students to learn and improving their learning experience, to cover a wide range of assessment types and have a wider adoption of electronic submission and marking for all student assignments. And the award that they got was the culmination of the integration of all these aspects, and bearing in mind that this had started before the pandemic. So actually they were in a very good position to deal with the issues arising as a result. And those are the steps that they went through. You'll see there, I'm not going to talk about those necessarily in any detail, but you'll see the increase of numbers from what they started out at with 325 in 2006 through to over 16,000 students and 142 examinations in 2019. And currently they're looking to move from their VLE supplier in Blackboard to another supplier, and also to start procuring a dedicated online system. And you'll see there a comment from a student, which I think is, that's what we're all about, isn't it? We're trying to support what the students do and encourage them in this type of learning environment. So they said, I've enjoyed the freedom to edit the structure of an essay. And I don't know what you're like. I don't think I've written an essay or anything longer than about 2 paragraphs with a pen for ages. It's ubiquitous. You use a computer to write your essays and edit it. So why not do that in this environment? And the student says it's more like the approach I would use when writing a long essay. So clearly it's adding benefit to them, as well as providing the technology, as well as the integration of data. And this is a comment from one of the student lecturers, and I think 2 telling points here, that it led to fairer marking. And they say that partly because they can actually read this. I don't know what you find, but I certainly know that my youngest son, who is in his 30s and works for Sky, I cannot read his writing, even though I've known him for obviously all his life. And being able to annotate, correct, add comments in an easy fashion that students can access. And then the last example I wanted to give you was one of a virtual classroom. And this is produced and set in place by an organization called Barca. You can just go on their website and book in, and they will do a half-an-hour demonstration with a few other people of how this classroom works. I found it fascinating. And the benefits that they say here is it ensures engagement, because you can see from that picture that each individual student has an individual screen, and the tutor is there and can be seen readily by the students. And it can be used in a hybrid fashion. You can have some students in the room and some students at distance learning. And the proximity between the students and the lecturer breaks down some of those barriers which you find difficult to deal with on remote learning, and in environments even like this excellent platform here of GoToWebinar. And it encourages much higher adoption rates. So I think that the investment in that clearly is quite significant, but I think if institutions are serious about looking how best to engage their students, this type of investment is certainly well worth looking at. So what resources are available nationwide in India? There's just some examples of general resources which are available. I took that again from the UNESCO website. It's worth a look because there's a lot more information on there. I think they've done a really good job of supporting education in this context, and that's where I've got a lot of my statistical information from. And I also picked up 2 or 3 examples from current suppliers. Some of these you may know, some of these your institutions may even be working with. WeBox, who have been working on graduate and postgraduate courses across those domains that I've indicated there. And they're running 9,000 plus assessments per semester, and these were in place even before the pandemic came. Meritrack and Manipal Academy of Higher Education, they're running 100,000 candidate assessments currently. And TCS Iron, and I'm sure Nikhil will talk more about this, 28 million candidate assessments. So it's happening, it's been there already, and I think it makes a great base for you and us to think about how we can take things from where we are and into the future. So just a brief look ahead, a couple more slides. Tara mentioned Jisc. This is worth a look at too, and if you haven't looked at their report on the future of assessments, it's certainly well worth doing so. And they have set down 5 principles for the implementation of technology enhanced assessments: that it's all authentic, preparing the learner for what they're going to do next. It's accessible, that everybody can access it. Sometimes those with special educational needs actually find technology more challenging in some ways, so you just have to be aware of that. But it's appropriately automated, that it makes marking the marking load easier and provides faster actionable feedback. As I said earlier on, it's continuous. It moves away from that one high stakes examination event, and obviously it's secure, not just technologically, but ensuring that the work that's undertaken and demonstrated is the candidate's own. And just to finish off, a last thought from a book called 500 Tips on Assessment. If you've not actually read it, then it's worth a read here. I think I bought this secondhand copy for 90p, so it won't break the bank, but I think it's a really seminal statement, if you like. Nothing that we do to or for our students is more important than our assessment of their work and the feedback that we give them. The results of our assessment influence our students for the rest of their lives and careers. Fine if we get it right, but unthinkable if we get it wrong. So there's a thought for you to take away. Let's get it right. Let's see how best we can harness the technology and access to learning environments that were unthinkable 20 years ago for the betterment of our students now, who are the Gen Z and those who use devices ubiquitously now. Thank you very much. I hope that you found that interesting, helpful, and obviously Nikhil and I are happy to pick up on questions and thoughts later on.
Thank you so much, Graham. That was really excellent, and it's really helpful to hear and learn about all the good case studies of how institutions are being creative in adapting to this unprecedented scenario. So thanks again. Our next expert speaker is Nikhil Sharma, Business Development Manager, TCS Iron at Tata Consultancy Services. Nikhil has been a member of the assessment community for over 10 years and currently takes care of business development at TCS Iron, which is the education unit of Tata Consultancy Services in the UK. He brings in huge experience of consultation and business development in the education domain across the globe and represents TCS for some of the largest clients of TCS in the assessment domain. In particular, we will hear from him about a brilliant new solution that TCS have come up with that is proven to be a real game changer in this space. So over to you, dear Nikhil. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tara, for this wonderful introduction. Hope all of you are able to see me. Good morning and good morning and good afternoon to people joining from the other side of the world for this webinar today. I hope you and your loved ones, everyone are safe and positive during these particular times. And before I start, I really love the information which was provided by Graham on how different countries are managing their assessments, how different sectors are managing assessment, and some very great examples. And it was also good to know that organizations like Jisc or even Ofcall lately, they have mentioned automation as one of the key pillars for the future of assessments. And if automation is now considered as one of the key pillars, technology has a huge role to play. So with this, keeping technology role today in the assessments, I would like to introduce TCS Ion. It's the education focused unit of TCS. Our major focus has been to digitize the assessments and learning across different organizations. And I would like to quickly share my screen. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. Perfect. So today I'm going to focus on assessment. Assessment specifically, we created a very secured platform 10 years back almost, which we call as TCS Ion Digital Assessments. It conducts errorless, paperless assessments today. Security has been the key. We have received multiple patents, in which on question paper, on 0% question paper leakage chances, and many other security parameters. We have received very great feedback, from customers, more than 97% customers saying speaking about the user experience of the platform on which we conduct assessments. And using this particular platform, we have conducted till date more than 230 million assessments. We hold a world record of doing 18.9 million assessments on a single day using this particular platform. And that's not only it, we do not provide just a platform, but we provide end-to-end assessment services today in this space of education. By that, I mean that there are other parameters like infrastructure support, like people support. So from infrastructure perspective, we have our own 250 plus centers in India, each having an average capacity of more than 1,000 people with us. And across the world, we have worked along with our partners and created a network of more than 6,000 unique examination centers today. We have also invested and created our own set of devices, which we call as paper, and we conduct offline assessments using those particular devices. In addition to that, we have also invested in people. So today, we also are working with more than 1,500 subject matter experts across different domains, different languages, who help us create, questions for some of the key high-stake examinations in India and abroad. In addition to that, during this pandemic, we created a huge pool of more than 20,000 proctors or invigilators who can help us providing proctoring services to assessments happening globally. So with TCS Ion, digital assessments, it's a combination of a platform, it's a combination of services across infrastructure and people required. Now, during this particular pandemic, we really saw a shift in the overall assessment scenario. All the higher education institutes, schools, or even, test centers for examination were conducted by awarding organizations. They closed. It was very difficult to conduct any large scale assessments examination with all the organizations being closed. So people thought to move towards online assessments more, and then conduct those examinations at home. But there was lack of infrastructure. A different set of challenges came when you started thinking that exams can be done at home, and there was difficult issues related to proctoring also which came up. This caused huge delay in certain examinations. It impacted the overall employability because a lot of recruitment examinations couldn't happen. It impacted education because the summative assessments for schools for higher education, it didn't happen. And it created a lot of fear among the candidates, the students who are going to they don't know what's going to happen next in their education career, the people who were trying to get certain jobs. So it caused a lot of chaos and fear. And we definitely felt, that there is a complete need to reimagine how the digital assessments should work in this pandemic in 2020, 21 and beyond. And with keeping these particular things in mind, from Tata Consultancy perspective, our key focus area or our key strength has been technology, our expertise in technology. And in TCS Ion few years back itself, we had invested a lot in the latest technologies which are there related to artificial intelligence, machine learning for multiple use cases, related to assessments itself. It includes authentication of correct people who are going to come into the assessments, auto marking of certain examinations which are audio based or speaking kind of test, or long essay written tests, which generally happen in HE and school segment. But during this pandemic, one investment, one particular investment which we did in remote proctoring, it enabled us to revolutionize how assessments are looked at. And I would like to share some of those things today with you. So some of the key capabilities, using artificial intelligence, which we came up with, I'll start with verification. So many of the examinations, when you start doing it in home-based mode, there's a lot of time at the start which was wasted when Proctor is going to verify you whether you're the same person or same candidate who was registered for the examination. They will, spend a lot of time in verifying the documents which you had, which can say that you're authentic. So digitizing them or automating them, the recognition that through face recognition software, through signature detection, automatic, document verification of candidates, that was one of the key features which we developed. Now, second is proctoring, which is machine-based proctoring for multiple things, that whether the same person who has registered, he is sitting during the entire duration of the exam for during the entire duration, or there are multiple people who are coming and giving the examinations, or at any point of time there is no one sitting in front of computer. So those things can definitely be looked by people, but how can system bring all these things instantly to you, show to you, flag it to you if there are any issues related to it. Object detection was also an important thing, where if I'm using my mobile phone or I'm using any particular device which I'm not allowed to during this examination. So capturing those particular things and instantly reporting was also one of the key features which we developed. My body postures, that whether while giving the examination I'm looking at a particular thing without any stop. So it means that I'm referring to certain things for looking at the answers, or my body movement, my head movement. So those things also tell that whether I'm cheating in certain, or I'm doing certain malpractice at a particular stage. Then there was liveliness check. So instead of me, what I can do is that I can record a video of mine and put it in front of the laptop, so, and I can be anywhere, but my laptop camera is recording, is showing a video of me to the proctor. So those things cannot be done today. It is automatically detected by the system. In addition to that, if drooping, so if I'm giving an examination and I'm sleeping in between, so how does the system notify that okay, this person is sleeping, or many other emotions capture of the candidate. Audio behavior, so if I am the only person sitting here, but there may be some person in the back or at some other place or on phone who is giving me answers. So recognizing those different audios which are there in the room, and not only recognizing them but also showing you the invigilators, the text which is there, the thing which is being spoken between both those particular people. One key area was invigilator also. So during this pandemic, we have seen multiple companies or multiple people reporting that invigilators have misbehaved, or invigilators have not been professional. So we understood this particular thing much before, and we created a state-of-an-art command center where invigilator does look at the different candidates who are giving the examination, but we also track the invigilators, or we also track the proctors using a central command center. So everyone is captured, and these are some set of key capabilities which we created in an automated fashion using the AI and ML capabilities. And through these capabilities, we introduced a solution during the pandemic, early pandemic, which is TCS remote proctored assessment. So first of all, all the parameters which I showed you, the monitoring, the controlling, everything is automated using the latest technology, and we continue to invest in such technologies. And real-time actionable insights are there, using which key decisions can be taken. So the invigilators, they're able to see at any point of time instantly if there is a malpractice, if someone else is present, or you hear some other audio, they are instantly able to see that, and they're able to decide that whether I stop this person from giving the examinations, do I need to talk to this person. So all those kind of decisions, the transparency is there. This model is very unique. So in addition to system showing you or automated analysis on certain parameters, you also have the capability to bring in people. They can also see the live, video of all the test takers, all the candidates who are giving the examination. And this entire technology we built, that it can work on multiple devices, multiple operating systems and softwares, because we understand that the top challenge which pandemic has brought to people is accessibility. People do not have accessibility to best of internet. They do not have accessibility to best of the devices. So this is something which should work across devices, across different operating systems and things like that. So how do we do it today? So TCS ION remote proctored assessments, we have three kind of offerings. First is self-proctoring mode, which we generally use for very low stake assessments, which are kind of class tests which happen in a higher education system, or the class tests which happen in schools. And basically it's kind of an open book examination. The example Graham talked about NBOSH, where you do not want the candidate to be proctored, but you do not want them to use anything else in their machines while taking the examination. So their complete machine is locked down. You cannot access anything else other than your examination. You cannot use certain keyboards. You cannot connect your laptop to some external laptop or screen. Any of the USB ports you cannot use. So that's how it works. Second mode is machine proctoring, where there is no human intervention. All the capabilities which I showed you through artificial intelligence, we capture it. Those are available to be seen real time, as well as later on in certain set of reports. Third part is human proctoring. So it's a combination of all these three. So first of all, yes, your machine will be completely locked. You cannot access anything else. The system will report using artificial intelligence, different alerts at all the time to the invigilators or proctors that what's going on. And in addition to that, the humans, they will also be able to see the live feed of candidates and be able to take certain actions on it. So we have during the pandemic itself done a lot of assessments using this remote proctored mode, and Graham talked about the numbers. Some of the key higher education institutes in India, key schools in India, they started using it. But I just wanted to bring one case study of a recruitment, a countrywide recruitment examination, which we did because of the numbers. So around 750,000 people, appeared in this examination, recruitment examinations within a week's time. This was, human proctored, as well as the AI ML based machine proctoring was done. At any point of time, there were more than 50,000 candidates who were taking this particular examination, and we use more than 2,500 proctors for this. So this talks about the scale at which the solution can deliver remote proctored assessments, and this has been one of the challenges for many of the institutions, and I wanted to show this to you. And before I end, I just wanted to tell that we are very proud that today in India, basically because of our assessment solution and some other suite of applications which we have created, every family is using somehow or is connected to the TCS ION family. Every school going child, every college going student, every professional who's trying to, every person who's trying to get a job seeker, or every professional who is already working in some way or the other, they appear for certain examinations, maybe recruitment or school examinations, or promotional examinations, or some other suite of applications. They are connected with us. We have reached out to every family. We are very proud of that. Today in India, more than 90% high stake digital assessments are done by TCS ION, and we aspire to reach the lives of people in UK, or reach to the lives of every family in UK also on the same lines. So with that, I will end. And if you want to know more about TCS ION, if you want to know about what we do in assessments, what are our capabilities, please feel free to contact me at the email ID which you can see on your screen. So thank you for your time, and we'll be very happy to take any questions which you have.
Thank you so much, dear Nikhil, for that fantastic update. It's really great to hear how TCS Iron's unique solutions have completely reimagined the assessment, processes, and how they're revolutionizing the whole system. That's brilliant. And also really good to hear how well connected you are with so many different sets of individuals in India. That makes me happy. We will now open the floor to any questions. So if people can just let me know, that'll be great. Thank you very much. Okay, just let me check if we have any. Fine. I've got a few questions to kick us off. So let me start with the first one. All right, this question is for Nikhil. Nikhil, can you see assessments returning to the way that they were run before the pandemic?
Okay, so I would answer that, with the advancement of technology, that proving that, the secured assessments can be conducted online, ability to manage the scalability with which is required for conducting the examinations, and the positive feedback of candidates, for many of the examinations, which Graham also was showing, who have moved to online mode, the comfort which they have to give it at their home, to organizations, the cost saving there. I definitely would say that many assessments who have moved online, they will continue to do that, at least for a huge percentage of people. And one more picture to it is that if we look at some other assessments which we have not been able to move online today, it's not only because of technology. There needs to be a change in the structure of the test, or the design of the test itself, to actually make them online. We definitely have to keep in mind that we should be able to still measure those indicators which were measured in the offline mode, but there needs to be changes in the code, there needs to be changes in the test structure and design. Technology definitely can support it with the innovations which are coming in. But yes, definitely pandemic, to answer in one line, has played a huge role in changing the mindset of people and adoption of online assessments, and most of them, they definitely will remain online.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. That's great. We have another question, so I'm going to read it out. Is AI used for invigilating at all? I think that's for you as well. Graham, I'll come to you soon.
Sorry.
So AI is also used for invigilating. Means if I take this question correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong. So from the perspective of proctoring the candidates, AI is being used for multiple cases, which I explained. You can track the person, you can track the devices they're using, their body postures, the audio recognition, many other things. But in addition to that, it should also be used to track the proctors, and that is what we have been doing. So all the proctors which are part of a particular assessment, their activities also needs to be looked at, and because of the certain cases which we have heard recently, and that is what we bring through our command center, where all the people from which are proctoring a particular examination, they are also tracked using all these parameters. I hope I have answered the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Graham, I'll ask you another one. What do you think higher education institutions should be looking at now to make their business models more resilient for the future?
Yes, thanks, Tara. That's quite a tricky one, really. But I guess it depends what market the higher education institutes are working in. The figures that I gave you for Australia really relate to the fact that many Australian universities rely upon students from the Far East and Middle East attending their universities, and therefore the physical location of students has been important to their business model. And in the UK, some of the universities here have been putting in extensive accommodation for students, and I think this is going to change. Students are already questioning here why they're paying the fees that they are paying when they don't necessarily feel that they're getting the value for money. So I think things that do need to be looked at is extending the work that they've done in a very admirable fashion on virtual learning environments, but also looking at areas of research that relate to synchronous and asynchronous learning. So what needs to be done to support the lecturers and those delivering courses in delivering the synchronous material as well as the asynchronous material. And there's some good examples of what's happening in that respect in the UK, particularly a group of colleges in the West Midlands. So I think it's taking what they've got, extending it, creating integrated data sets like the University of Newcastle and University of Reading here has done, and then looking more seriously at how they can put in place secure methods for remote examinations. And I think the business model, this is just my own personal opinion, is probably going to have to change from reliance on students being in one place at one time to distributed learning.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you so much. I've got a few more AI questions. That's a popular topic. All right, Nikhil. So the question is, how far has AI evolved in the auto-marking of more complex, larger tariff questions? Examples, 6+ marks requiring structured responses, essays, etc.
Correct. Thank you. So auto-marking has definitely reached a very good level. If you talk about essay kind of responses, we ourselves have invested in multiple areas, like if you talk about essays, spelling checks, grammar checks, using English evaluation framework which we have created. Some of the English examinations are not only essays, but you also record audio in which you speak about something. So the goodness of your pronunciation when you are speaking those things, that check. And so these particular things are areas where you would see many companies, many things, including us. We have invested a lot, and it's all on the data. So if you look at from machine learning perspective, AI enables machines to learn from experiences, and the more data, the more diverse data which you put in the system, the ability to auto mark or the ability to recognize the next set of action becomes more easy. But definitely we have seen more than 90% or correctness in these particular areas we have seen, and there's still some things which needs to be evolved in these areas. But yes, definitely this is an area of focus for AI.
Can I add a couple of comments to that?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely what Nikhil is saying, there's huge advances. There has been quite a lot going on in the past, and there's 1 or 2 organizations, particularly in the States, who have worked on the scoring of essays. ETS as an organization has done quite a lot of research work in this area. And in Washington, there's a scheme that the education department there supports, which is looking to encourage suppliers to develop applications which enhance learning that are research based. And I think the point here that's quite important is that whatever tools are used in this territory are research based. And I know that Nikhil and his team have got a large number of psychometricians and others who look to validate what is happening. And there's 1 or 2 applications, one that I came across the other day called moby.read, moby.read, READ, which is a lovely little application in the States that students use to recognize their ability in verbalizing oral work, and that reproduces for the teachers an immediate score on their reading ability. So there's a lot being done, and more will be done. I think it's going to accelerate.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. Another question. How easy or difficult has it been for clients to forecast demand given the shift in the formation from pen and paper exams to computer-based examinations? Who would like to take that?
Well, I'll kick off on that if you like.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it partly depends on the environment that they're in. So when I cited NBOSH, that was in a regulated environment, and therefore what is done with the assessments have to be discussed with the regulator. And clearly in the large-scale context in the UK and probably in other countries too, where there's a regulator involved, then how that's managed has to be discussed with them. So that adds one layer of constraint on it, if you like. But if you move outside of that territory, then I've been extremely impressed with the organizations I've seen and worked with their ability to transform what they're doing from a written environment into a digital environment. And one organization that I've been doing some work with has had a two-pronged attack, one which is technical, what system and support do we need, and then the other is research based on how do we change the nature of our questions and the structure of those questions. So in those environments, it's simpler to do it because you don't have constraints around them. But the biggest challenge is not the technology. The biggest challenge is the change management that's required, and particularly if you have distributed marketing around the world and many learning partners who support you, actually making the cultural and organizational change and winning hearts and minds of all the stakeholders is the hardest bit. It's not necessarily the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And through the supply chain as you go, trying to affect change. Thank you, that's great. I'm just checking for another question, which I think is for Nikhil. Nikhil, how does TCS Iron plan capacity to manage large-scale exams? Are there any best practices that you could share?
So from capacity perspective, there are multiple things. As I mentioned, first of all, we have created solutions. So technologically, the systems should have the ability to scale at speeds. Today, if I'm doing 1 million assessments and tomorrow I want to do 30 million assessments, the system should be automated, or it should recognize that I need more set of servers, or technologically what are advancements which we need to do to automatically match that demand. And today the good thing is that we have designed our data centers or designed our servers in that way that they automatically scale up when the number of assessments scale up. That is from technology perspective. Second is from the people perspective also, where you might need more number of proctors. You might need proctors, as Graham was mentioning, culturally fit with the examinations you are doing, or able to provide that support in multiple languages. So we invested in that aspect also. As I mentioned, we have more than 20,000 plus people, and we have the ability to quickly scale those numbers also whenever required. But yeah, that's how we see from TCS Iron perspective managing scalability.
There's just something I'd add there, which is really from a user perspective, working with suppliers, that in part of that transition, you don't necessarily take the systems and processes you've got and replicate them in a technological way. You may have to consider changing what you do in order to gain the benefits of the technology, and also things like being prepared to schedule. And in my experience, proctoring organizations do need some notice for actually delivering proctoring solutions, but provided that you're prepared for those trade-offs and work together, it can work very well.
Definitely.
Very good, thank you. And actually that leads me to another question, that do you think that change of this magnitude can take place without national government support? Graham, would you like to continue?
Yes, well, that's a great question. It's one that I've been struggling with here in the UK. there is a growing support, if you like, across the industry for actually making significant change. But if you have a system that has a regulator, it has had a structure that is fairly embedded in the approach and culture of a country, it makes it quite difficult to make that change. So in the areas that I was talking to you about earlier on, in professional exams, credentialing, you've got more degrees of freedom. In the national context, you haven't. And so where you've seen it happen in places like France, Luxembourg, Italy, Portugal, Brazil, you have national ministries that have decided they're going to do this, and they do it. And in fact, those organizations work together in a consortium called Flip Plus. If you want to look it up, it's flip-plus.com. And you can see the work that they're doing where they share resources, and it's been very successful. The other example is in Egypt, where the Minister of Education has decided that all students at K-12 are going to be assessed using digital assessment. That's a huge project that's been put in place, and it is working. So if you're going to have that change, I do think you have to have national leadership and backing if you're going to take those high volume, high stakes exams and transition them, or change the nature, so that, as Nikhil said earlier on, you might want to change the structure so that it can be more amenable to learning in the 21st century. So I do think with those big scale things, you need the government backing, support and leadership.
Absolutely, and to ensure that it is just and equitable and inclusive, yes, and culturally sensitive. My last question before we wrap up is for Nikhil. Nikhil, what do you think are the key attributes of a well-designed digital assessment system now and beyond, now and into the future?
Okay, so key attributes, or we will actually see certain assessment systems by 2030, which are ready to adapt with the changing needs. We discussed about the changing requirements of different customers, the culture, the language requirements. So those solutions, or the assessment solutions in 2030, will definitely be ready to adapt to those changing needs. We will have the ability to mark or conduct online any kind of skill today which cannot be done online. From some of the questions I can pick up, we will have the highly scalable, so that any demand which comes, those can met at speed, highest level of security possible, accessible through any set of devices as well as to everyone. And one very important feature would be that I definitely think that it will be very, very much affordable to the education institutions. So there is no need to think about any kind of budget and things like that. So yeah, I would say scalable, affordable, accessible, ability to assess any kind of skill, and really adaptive systems.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. And we're bang on 11 o'clock, so we're going to wrap up now. That's all the time we have, even though we could continue for hours. I hope you'll all agree that this has been an absolutely brilliant and thought-provoking discussion. A huge thank you to our wonderful speakers for their time, and we look forward to continuing these discussions in following weeks. So thank you very much, Nikhil and Graham, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you, Tara.
Thanks a lot, Tara. Very nice.